A very good evening, everyone, or morning. I see people from the other side of the globe are also joining online. And welcome for this session. Losar to everyone. Are we audible? Are we audible? Can you hear us online? Yes? Very low. Okay. Jackie, can you hear us? I can just...
Softly.
Softly, okay, let me have a look.
That's better.
Okay, now it should be good, right?
Very good.
Okay, great. So I was saying a very good evening to everyone, or a very good morning for the people who are joining from the other side of the planet online, and thank you for joining us. And Losar Shidile to everyone, happy Tibetan New Year. So, as I guess most of you know, 41 years ago on Losar, Lama Yeshe took the aspect of passing away. And so every year on Losar, we try to, remember the qualities of Lama Yeshe. And we are also making offering. I don't know if you can see online. We arranged some offerings for Lama Yeshe on behalf of everyone. And so the way we will remember Lama Yeshe is by sharing stories about Lama. And we have 3 students in Delhi who are still around, who actually met Lama in the late 70s, early 80s. And so we have Joya ji here, Joya Roy, as well as Renuka Singh, and Kabir Saxena as well. And Kabir is in Bodh Gaya. He's doing prayers under the Bodhi tree tonight, but he recorded a video for us about some stories with Lama Yeshe. So maybe we'll start with Kabir's video, no? Okay.
Then we have to log into Zoom. Do we have to log into Zoom?
It is. This is Zoom.
But how will you?
Don't worry.
So there's so much to be said about Lama. He fished me out of England in 1983 when I was cold and miserable, brought me back to India and asked me to help with Root Institute. I have so many memories of him, both from North England and of course from Delhi, and not from Bodh Gaya, unfortunately, but Delhi and London and the north of England. So he was, for me, he was someone incredibly practical and loving, like a mother. For me, he really was that kind of person. And he took on so much responsibility in the early days. He said, I'm just a mountain yogi. You're the people, you're the hippies who should be looking after the centers. Why are you asking me to manage the centers? Because he was having to give so many instructions about how to run a center. And he said, this is not my job. Anyway, some memories of him playing with a dog as though he was a child in the garden, in the back garden of Tushita Center in Delhi. And I was doing a short retreat, and the incredible kindness and effusive sort of love he showed me when I went to see him, and he plonked a whole handful of almonds in my hand from his altar. I saw the wrathful side of him as well, by the way. Once at Kapan, some monks were playing volleyball or something, and they shouldn't have been. And Lama came storming down the steps like a tornado, really, and growled, shouted at them, and they dispersed very quickly indeed. And that same time, around that time, he gave a Vajrapani initiation in the small Gompa at Kapan. And it was as though he had transformed into Vajrapani while he was reciting the mantra. It was such a sense of power he was exuding. So he had this great motherly kindness, he had great power, He was incredibly practical. My last memory of him is at a dinner at a five-star hotel in Delhi, where we were eating quite good food. But the main thing that he had wanted to tell us, as he nudged me, I was sitting next to him, Rinpoche was in front of me. Rinpoche, by the way, is gobbling up a disgusting dessert, which I didn't like the taste of. So Rinpoche deliberately made a sense of eating it very fast and as though he were enjoying it. Anyway, this is more about Lama. So at the end, because there were students in Delhi who really were having issues, problems, and we often didn't pay enough attention to each other, his parting words were, please take care of these particular people, show them affection and love, and take care of them because they suffer so much. Oh, and I've almost forgotten, I almost forgot the most important thing. Sorry, this is going beyond 3 minutes, but I have to say this. When I took my father up the hill at Dharamsala to see Lama for the first time, Dad had been a smoker, he came up the hill, he was panting, and then he's, after a few minutes of him sort of catching his breath, we were asked to meet Lama on the roof of Rinpoche's house. First thing Lama does is pour some very delicious alcohol into my father's hand. And father was, kind of blissed out because he likes his booze, and must have been given something really delicious by Lama. And then Lama asked him, "Are you satisfied with your son?" Because he knew that my father's a little bit not quite sure about what I was doing, becoming a Buddhist and coming back to India, and So I think he reassured my father tremendously by showing that he was also a connoisseur of excellent spirit. And so I think that's all I need to say now about Lama. There are infinite things to be said, and people can read Big Love if they want to know more about that extraordinary teacher who kept the organization together for so many years. Thank you. So there's so much to be said about
And now I would like to request Joya Roy to share some stories about Lama.
How many minutes?
It's really up to
2
you.
minutes.
No. I don't know why I said 2 minutes. It's really up to you. If you want to speak for even 2 hours, you can speak for 2 hours. We will listen. Thank you.
So I just want to introduce where I came from before I met Lama. And my parents were in Gaya. And so naturally, everybody used to go to Bodh Gaya. Even then, although it was not what you see now, it was very run down and very encroached. There were cows eating, grass inside the lawns, and there was no boundary wall or anything, just a big pit with a temple in it. So he was the district judge, but he got into archaeology and discovered a cave of my father, cave of the Buddha, where he met a Tibetan. And I have a letter from His Majesty's government saying, His Majesty's government doesn't give you permission to study Tibetan. So then he studied Pali, and so we had this Pali sutras resounding in our house. And I didn't like it one bit because I couldn't understand a word. And he was completely unapproachable when he was reciting his sutras, my father. Anyway, so later on when I became a little more aware, and in college, we moved towards, studying Indian gurus like J. Krishnamurti and Ranganathananda, of these many different places. So I didn't have any Buddhist teachings at all, or any contact even, by the time we went to Kapan. That was strange. My husband comes from the Anglican church, Christian family. But he studied sociology of religion, where he probably read much more than I ever did about any other, religions. So when he was transferred to Nepal in 1979 on a Colombo plan exchange, something or the other, to teach district planning. And the strange thing is, the main sponsor looked at him very meaningfully at a farewell dinner and said, "Go to Copan." He was an American. "Go to Copan. So this word came to us, and we happened to land in a place, Taragaon Hotel, which is near Bodha. And the manager of the house said, I have a house you can stay in. And it was right on the main road to Kapan. So, these kind of synchronicities probably happened. And I feel they were all like karmic. So we marched up the hill one day, and no one allowed us to see him. Then we tried again. We weren't allowed to see him because he was surrounded by people who were very jealous of anybody, and they thought we were Indians, and this was true of me, As an Indian, I was a little bit vain. I come from a country which has many traditions, including Buddhism, everything. And I think Lama must have seen some of this slight arrogance or closed-mindedness in me. But he got on with my husband like a house on fire. And my husband was telling him, Lama, you must plant trees in Laudo. Look at the thing, look at the environment. You must have hybrid cows, because look at these little Lulu cows they have up there. They don't give milk even. And Lama was rolling up and down, rolling around in delight, clapping his hands and saying, yes, yes, absolutely, Dr. Roy. So I was sent down to have tea, tell somebody to bring tea. And when I came back, they were like a house on fire. It was amazing. So I think he saw something in my husband. But so we started working on that project to make, Senla was in charge of those kind of things. And she wrote a project to involve the Buddhist center, because the person had said there's no NGOs in Nepal to do the work you want to do. So get the religious organizations what to do. You get the Hindu and whatever they have, maybe some Muslim and then Buddhist and the monks in the monasteries. So that was our mandate. So when they wrote the project that could have been funded, it was for a Buddhist school in Laudo. And the sponsors who were bred for the world in Belgium or Holland, they said, Pradipto, we could have funded anything for you. They wanted a real school or a dairy or agriculture or forestry, but we can't tell everybody in those Christian countries pays a tithe. A tithe? A 10%? A 10% of their earnings to their church, if they are church-going people. So he said, our money comes from people who are Christians, and we can't tell them we are funding a Buddhist school. So we were so disappointed. And we said, we could have done this, because already we had this feeling for the Lamas, that, we should do something for them because they want it done. Later on, we started getting strange messages from his secretary, Karuna Ketan, at that time. And I think till the end, he was there for many years, all the time that we were there, till 84. And he said, Lama says he won't come to Kapan because he can't get a shower. He's not going to come where there's no water. And another time he said, people got very sick because they were drinking contaminated water that was coming from through the nearby village. So we got the message, and we came to Lama together and said, Lama, we couldn't get the money for your Buddhist school. So what shall we do for you? And then he sent these subtle messages. So we came up with this idea. We got engineers of bringing water to Kapan, because they just had a very meager lines of water supply and some well down the hill and all this. So while we were doing this project, this is nothing about dharma. This is how people like me who are quite obtuse and rigid don't see what we have in front of us, When we see a great saint or whatever we see, we may not exactly know what we are seeing. So we designed this project to bring water 500 meters up the hill, with a submersion pump in a well. And somehow we had a lot of Dutch volunteers who helped us. One of them remained behind. His name is Lex, and he named his son Yeshe after Lama Yeshe. he worked wholeheartedly, almost drowned once in the well. And there was Lama Pasang there at that time. I don't know if people remember him. And it took about a year. We had people coming, engineers coming with a submersible pump, Johnson pumps from thing. It was the first time we had gone to UNICEF, and they said we could have helped you, but the one place we are not allowed to work is in the valley because it's so rich. We're supposed to work in the rural areas. So we did this. We told Lama, now we'll have to get funding. And they very quickly got the funding for it. And the thing was done, and it worked. And very strangely, much later, you know, Lama said, I don't care about anything. I'm a simple monk. I don't care how I live, what I eat, where I am. It doesn't matter to me. So now I see this as skillful means, you know. The first thing I noticed is that he saw how we were too busy. My husband was too busy. I was rather opinionated. I was not comfortable. So working for 1 year with the monks, you know, from the senior monks to the tiny little monks. There were monks in Kapan who people just wanted to leave them in the monastery to spend time. They'll learn English, they'll learn reading, writing, and, you know, they'll get to meet people of different countries. These were mostly Tibetan monks, but some Manangi and other Nepali monks. And so there were about 100, I would say, tiny little monks. And they were carrying cement for us down the hill. They were bringing the pipes and the wires and running up and down the hill. Now I meet some of these, say in Bodh Gaya or during Kala Chakra, and they keep looking at me. And then I say, do I know you? And they said, yes, you did that. Because they were tiny then and now they're big geishas. So that happened. So then we got more familiar with the place. Now all this time, Lama Zopa, I have a picture here I can't show, but he always had his head down like this, you know. We were the guests of the Lama. And he never looked at us, he looked at his feet under the table. He would take away our dirty cups and dishes, you know, just like a student should for his Lama's guests. And then he was to put a cushion under my feet and things like that. He was doing this, so we completely ignored Lama Zopa. But then we got to know what happened. I think I took refuge inadvertently in Lama's last talk in Kapan. And he was again doing his great dramatic act. He took his mala and he started hitting himself, and he said, you know, we have this feeling, I'm bad, you know. And he's hitting himself with the Lama and he's hitting him on the head, and he says, I'm no good, I'll never do anything in my life. That's the feeling we have sometimes. But it's completely, you know, and then he gave the teaching on, you know, precious human rebirth. And inadvertently I took refuge because he said, I take refuge in Buddha, and we all repeated, I take refuge in Dharma, in the Sangha, and he, you know, we just repeated after him. And later on I realized, oh, I took refuge. Is that it? Yeah, okay. But that didn't change. We never, you know, he used to have hilarious sessions with his main students who were all Westerners. And we used to come up there to ask him about, shall we do this or that, left or right? What shall we do? North, south, east, west? What shall we do? And then we wouldn't go in. I wouldn't go in because they were all rolling around on the floor, hilarious tantric teaching. They were just so delighted with this. But we thought we shouldn't listen. So we would back away. And it was only later on that I realized what a style he must have had just to impart even Dharma teachings, tantric teachings to people. Later on, after Lama passed, then my batch of people who had come later, after he had left, Lama Zopa also got Chopke Trizin, the great Sakya Lama, to give us teaching, because, you know, I had a feeling he knew that we were so unserious and so unable to actually follow the teachings that they better not be my students, you know, let them go somewhere else. So on that last day, Lama went away because he had this problem in his heart. And later on, Karuna, his secretary, told us, the surgeon said Lama had a huge anomaly in his heart. He had never seen anything like that. That was not the time when they had stents or even heart transplants, or forget about pacemakers. There was nothing to do. I don't know what they had planned to do. It was very painful for us to hear this. But Lama had actually developed an extra artery to supply his heart with something. And the surgeon, his coronary surgeon, said, I have never seen anything like this in my life. I have never heard about it in my education, in whatever degrees they take. And that was what Lama did, so that he could just carry on a little longer, just to help sentient beings. So that was the compassion aspect. And once he told me, when they didn't allow us to meet Lama because we were Indians and we have our own thing going on, and what do they want? We were secular people. We met a great scholar, Jan Willis. She was a black scholar who translated Asangas, Bodhisattva Bhumi and various things like that. So when we complained, we are supposed to go to Kapan and do some work for them, but they're not allowing us to meet him. They kept running their courses, the November course, the March course. Jack Schwartz, I don't know if anybody remembers him. He was running that course and he said, no, you can't meet him. So I got angry. My husband was a little disappointed. But then she said, yeah, they'll never let you meet him. Come with me. She took us by the hand and marched us up to see him the first time. And later on, he told me that, you came with Jan. And he said this, I have such a feeling for her and her entire community in the US. They have suffered so much indignity, poverty, marginalization. They really know the meaning of suffering. Many people come from the West, they have everything. Or they're bored, or they've gone on the wrong track, maybe into drugs and things. And then, then they naturally come to these other religions because whatever they had wasn't actually helping them or serving them. But Jan, when I met her, he said, I could see the suffering behind her eyes of having become a professor, quite renowned and quite a famous translator, but having lived through a lot of indignities in her life. So that was his skillful means, his compassion. And then there's an aspect which I can't quite communicate. I have a picture here, after we did the project, which took about a year and a half or so, he had a grand function on the lawns. He would, on New Year's Losar, we would all gather out there and Lama would be on a window, looking down from the windows and looking down to say, everybody's having fun. Do you like that thing? He'd be saying, did you like that thing we made? But after the project was finished, he invited us specially and he gave us a very expensive gift chosen by Mummy Max. Mummy Max was there. And it's completely unnecessary. I mean, we enjoyed ourselves so much doing that. And then he went away after that. And just before leaving, this is also a little bit of skillful being. Just before leaving, Karuna dashed down the hill and said, you have that spray that helps you breathe. Lama can't breathe. We are taking him to California. And so my husband gave his spray. My husband had asthma. And he gave his spray. And Karuna ran off with it, gave it to Lama, and they left. Now, I don't remember how long it took in the hospital in California. I don't know why. I guess we were just too busy to be in touch all the time with the monastery. Our job had been done. And then when on the night of Losar, 1984, but on that night, from the nearby monasteries in Bodha, we heard these low horns, these long horns that they play all night like a lullaby. The whole night. They went on and on and on for some reason. I think it was a Kargyu monastery or a Shechen monastery hadn't come up. And the whole night we couldn't sleep because of this beautiful sound. And in the morning we heard that Lama had passed. And then we all kind of were in shock. You know, we could hardly believe it. And in case some people don't know, Lama used to keep a little chihuahua inside his, what do you call it? The monk's donka. So he'd keep this. And when he didn't like somebody, he or she would get out, keep an eye on them and look at them, and then go right back in. And if he didn't really like them or if there was something going on, he'd start barking a lot, he or she. So Lama had him or this puppy, Chihuahua puppy, in his hospital room. He was like his second heart, maybe. And when Lama died, I believe this little Chihuahua died at the same time with him. Very strange. So anyway, so the other thing I saw was I definitely never listened to his teachings because they were all into this heavy tantric stuff. And we had no idea what it was. But we would consult him about many things. And this was where his power to do things came out to us, you know, like something like a sociological kind of a report of, you know, how these monks function. There was a man who was trying to throw my husband out of the country. I don't know why. He had studied under him, under my husband in Michigan University. And my husband had said something like to the effect that, what's the problem with doing district planning in Nepal? You know, Nepal is like a district of India. He never forgave him for this. What he meant was the population, number of cities, connectivity, you know, like this. And actually they were planning all kinds of things. So he was very angry with this. And for some reason he went on like head on with my husband. And finally he told him, I'm going to get you thrown out of the country. So my husband said, that's okay. I mean, you can do that, but first finish your project report. And this message I conveyed to Karuna, and the message came down from Kapan immediately. Lama says, if you have somebody trying to throw you out of the country, we can do something about him. So I asked Karuna, what can he do? What can he do? I mean, I had no understanding that they can actually engineer events, engineer circumstances, and work on, you know, your enemies. And we had no idea because we hadn't been with a person like that. We'd never gone to big gurus closely or anything. So when the message came down that Lama can do anything, and he can be totally destructive also. So we said, no, it's okay. If he throws us out, it's all right. I mean, you know. But obviously Lama did something because the man calmed down and didn't get us thrown out of the country. It was such hostility. So the end of it was that we stayed 10 years there and got very close to Kapan. So while Lama was alive, then once, this is a story. This is a personal story. So once I went up to him, I had been working for 9 years on a film in Orissa on the temple dancers there. They were the only female, there were 36 levels of servants of the Lord, the top being the king, not only of that Orissa, but also of Nepal. The Nepal king had equal rights, the royal patronage. Then under them, there were so many levels of priests and astrologers and cooks and, you know, people who make the, the offerings and everything, and the female dancers. So after 9 years, I finally got money. Finally was able to land money from Joe Elder. He was in that university. He knew Lama, the Lama Zopa there, you know, the famous professor Lama Zopa. So he got the funding. And the critical period came when we hired a film team to go to Orissa. But my husband had made a program to walk to a village quite far away. I mean, just walk the whole day to this village because there were no roads in some of the places he was visiting. So I went to Lama and I said, you know, Lama, I finally got a break, and I finally got funding for this film. And the film team have finally agreed to go. Everything's happened. But my husband is going on this field trip. And he has to apparently walk 22 kilometers. And he's asthmatic. And Lama looked at me and he said, "You're worried about your husband?" So I said, "No, of course not. I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about myself. Because he's asthmatic. I mean, he can get into an anaphylactic shock any moment. And then what will happen to me? I'm worried about myself, Lama." So he said, "What's your problem?" So I said, "Well, I don't have children. And what will I do if something happens to him? And it's my duty to look after him." He said, "Oh, is that it? So you want one of my monks? Choose any of them. Choose a monk and I'll assign him to you. You look after him and you be his sponsor." So I said, "Okay." So I said, "I want this one." He said, "I don't think you can have it." It was Temperature then, who's now the head of the monastery. So I said, "Oh," because he had helped us through this whole drinking water project. Then he said, "Okay, take his brother." So we sponsored him for some years, and that was the only thing we did to ever really, engage with the monks. We sponsored him until he suddenly said he doesn't want to be a monk anymore, and he left. And then I was rather disappointed, but this is how Lama completely, when he said this to me, "You're worried about your husband," and take this monk, and his face, his visage was completely steady, looking at me deeply, and I can't tell you what it felt like. I don't know if anybody's seen this film, The Seventh Seal. It's a Bergman film, the Swedish director, and it's about a knight who's on his horse and he's going through the country, which is Europe, which is ravaged with plague and wars, and it's a horrible scene. And then he meets death, and death comes there like a monk with a cowl and a scythe. And at one point in that film, he talks to death, and death looks at him. He gives him a lecture about what is death and what is life. And the eyes, when he looks at it, the filmmaker closes up on his eyes, and you can see death in his eyes. And that's what I saw in Lama Yeshe's eyes. I mean, I just saw the power that he had, First, the power to just look through us. Did you feel that, Renuka? Yeah?
I will share my experience.
Wonderful, wonderful. But that's when I just had this very kind of horrific kind of feeling coming from him. And I now, due to my, I don't think I'm mentally very developed, in the Dharma field. And I suspect he just thought, why is she worrying about such things, losing her project, whatever she's been doing? What does it matter when you've met the Dharma? What else could you do but stay with it? I feel that was what he was showing us. And there are, of course, many other things with Mummy Max and others used to tell us about. That's what my strongest memories are of this, of these three aspects: skillfulness. Skillful means compassion, and the power of a real renunciate, of a siddha, a person who's arrived somewhere. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Shreyaji, for these inspiring stories. And actually, Jan Willis, she's still going around the world teaching
Yes.
tirelessly.
Yes,
And
she
she's
was on
very,
this huge thing.
because she's not young, right?
No.
She's very dynamic in her
Very.
style of teaching. It's very inspiring.
And I think a lot of this came from her.
Mm.
We used to meet her in an academic group, but she just said, "Come, I'll take you." So we are indebted to her. A wonderful person.
Thank you so much. So now I request our director, Professor Renuka Ji to share also some inspiring stories about Lama. But you met him only once, right?
Yes.
So there's one story.
Yeah.
But maybe you've heard other
Unlike
stories.
Kabir and Joyaji. So just once in my life, I met Lama Yeshe, first and the last time. And so maybe I'll also try and weave a story like Joya. So I think this was 1983. And I was a doctoral student at JNU at that time. And I had a lot of questions about the mind. I couldn't understand, even though I had gone through the Western psychology, philosophy, etc. And then one family friend of ours mentioned to me that, look, there is one Lama coming here in Delhi, you go and meet him, he'll be able to answer your questions. So believe me, I didn't know anyone at Tushita. The function was being held at the Oberoi Hotel. This was the third Dharma celebration. And I just arrived there, waiting for the lamas to arrive in the morning.
Where was it? In
Oberoi?
Oberoi, okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
No, I wasn't here at all.
You weren't
in
there?
that time, at that time.
Okay.
In Delhi.
This was 83,
Yeah, I remember.
October 83, I still remember. And so I was sitting on the ground, waiting, and then they said, oh, Lama has come, Lama has come. So I looked back. When I looked back, and that was Lama Yeshe, and he was radiant. So in my mind, I had a question. I said, what is he so happy about? And you won't believe, immediately Lama's face became so serious. There was a total transformation. Anyway, so then I had the desire to meet the Lama that day and just have a conversation with him. So waited for the teachings to get over. Then it was lunchtime, and I saw Lama having lunch. And I said, oh, I wish I could meet him. Anyway, so after having lunch, I went out to use the facilities. And there in the corridor, and I think Jackie is very much there. Jackie, I'm going to include you in the story. Yes? So Lama was standing there, and so was Jackie. And Lama just walked up to me, and I walked up to him very, very spontaneously. And he says to me, he says, I'm very happy to meet you. And I said, I really wanted to meet you. So then he calls Jackie and says to Jackie, she really wants to meet me, fix up an appointment. And then Lama disappeared, and I asked Jackie for an appointment. And Jackie said, so sorry, Lama is very busy. He's here only for 2 days and you can't meet him. That was the end of it. Do you remember that, Jackie? No? I remember that. So I waited for the function to be over. And then I went up to the dais and I said, Lama, your secretary says that you don't have time. So then he said to me, do you have time now? I said, of course I have. So he came down and we sat on a sofa, and he gave me maybe 10 to 15 minutes maximum. That was my only meeting with him. And I asked Lama a few questions. The gist of the whole thing was, of my conversation with him, ultimately he said that awareness is everything. Whatever you do in life, do it with awareness. Okay? And after that, he blessed me on my head, and I had no idea what Lama is doing to me. I didn't realize he was actually hooking me for Tushita Center. And I've headed this center for such a long time. I mean, run this place. So I don't know what Lama saw in me at that time, but here I am. And then that night, I had such a profound experience. I had such a profound dream, kind of a prophetic dream. It really, in the morning, kind of shook me up. And it was all I think Lama's doing. And later on, I dreamt again that Lama passed away. Then a year after that, I dreamt that Lama was reborn. He was there in my dream. And I used to write down my dreams those days.
Oh, lucid dreams.
Yes. And when I read in the newspapers that Lama was identified in Spain,
Little
I
Spanish
showed it to
man.
my parents, and my parents said, "You must be crazy," you know. But, I was, what should I say? I was not a religious person at all. And quite a skeptical person, didn't believe in reincarnation. But believe me, I think through Lama's passing away and rebirth, he actually taught me about reincarnation. And that experience was so profound in my life that I could not deny my inner experience. And I'm convinced that, there is reincarnation. And through his example,
Yes.
Lama, this is what he taught me. I think it was a very profound teaching that I got from him. And that changed my life. And then subsequently, I started going to Tushita. I started reading a lot about Tibetan Buddhism. I did a research paper on the feminine principle in Tibetan Buddhism. And I met His Holiness, I met Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and everything unfolded in my life. And the journey still continues. And then the best part was reading this book, Big Love, the story about, this whole movement, I would say, the spiritual movement, and how Buddhism spread to the West. So I will recommend this book to everyone. It's a very, very inspiring, text. Big Love, in 2 volumes. This is a biography of Lama Yeshe, the FPMT centers, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I mean, I had no idea what these lamas were about, really the depth of it, till I read these 2 volumes. So I strongly recommend everyone to go through it. And I'm profoundly grateful to our teachers, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for being in our lives and guiding us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anukaji.
Addition.
Yes.
Is this
And
audio?
I just want to say we have copies here at the center of Big Love. If you want to borrow, you can borrow from us. We have 1 or 2 copies available to borrow.
When was the,
And
no,
yes,
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
When was the Dharma celebration which Lama taught? All of them in the beginning. In the beginning.
That was the first and the second one at Ashoka Hotel.
The first and the second in
Yeah.
Ashoka, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say something about that. Now, at that time, the center must have been in Shantiniketan. And Nick was the director, Ribush. Trisha was there. There were people like Max Redlick and others coming through. I wish you had got Max Redlick. He passed away. Huh? Okay. And then Naresh also. So, actually, my mother, I was telling you about my parichay, my background of not being driven into hunting for anything of value in Buddhism, but yes, reading other teachers and yoga books myself and thinking I could understand some of these things myself. So what happened was when we went up to Nepal, then immediately when I came back, because I used to come back very often to Delhi, and my mother said, "You know what happened? I went to this teaching in Ashoka Hotel, and this monk Lama was there, I think they gave her a picture at that time because she had it. And you know what he talked about? He said about transfer of consciousness. They actually do this in their thing, you know. Yes. And so I just stared at her, you know, in a somewhat kind of irritated way, and like, you know, what is all this? What is she babbling about, you know? I really, you know, ignored what she said. It was only much later. And frankly, only now that when we are studying certain texts in Tibet House under the Nalanda Master's courses, that we even hear about things like all the stages that go up, you know, all the different, you know, the 8 Sangha, the paths and everything, you know, and all the streams. And, you know, we, of course, in this tradition, with an ending with Abhisamaya Alankar. So when I heard the name Abhisamaya Alankar in the curriculum of Nalanda Master's course, I remembered what my mother said about what Lama Yeshe said. And everything that he taught, I think, was don't waste your life, because this is not the only one you have. You will end up in a terrible state at some time. And please follow these. Please follow the teachings if you've taken refuge. And that's what that little extra thing I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Joyaji. And yeah, we have someone who just arrived here. So he missed the stories, but I would like to mention that this is recorded, so you can watch later on our YouTube channel. And maybe so you didn't come for no reason. Jackie, would you like to share 1 or 2 stories of Lama Yeshe while we are here? Would you like to do that? If you don't know a reason.
I'm happy to do that, but the main thing I want to say is how delighted I am to be in the presence of Joya and my good friend Renuka. Delhi is so important in my life. I can't begin to tell you. I haven't been back, Renuka, since I said goodbye to you all those, 38 years ago, must be? 38. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I went to see Renuka before leaving Delhi, and she said to me, "You know, I have some good friends in America, and I'll find out where they are, and I'll let you know about them, and I'll hook you up." And I said, "Yeah, right. I mean, America's a really big country. How is she going to have friends that I'll be able to hook up with?" And it turned out her good friends lived in the same town where I was moving to. So that was very special, very special. And and Joya, hearing your stories made me so very, very happy. I didn't know all that background to the well and the water and your dear husband. It was really beautiful. So thank you so much, and I'm just delighted to be here. You can't imagine. But interestingly enough, unlike Joya, who is from India, where you expect everybody to be, well, at least I have the stereotype that everybody in India is spiritually attuned. I was from America, where you're not supposed to be spiritually attuned, but from the moment I was born, I remember thinking from the moment I was born that I was looking for Lama, but I didn't know it was Lama. I was just looking. And everything I did from the moment I was born onward was looking, looking. Everything that I tried was looking. And the day that I met Lama Yeshe, that was it. It was like, no, I didn't leave Lama Yeshe from that moment on. And you mentioned about how Lama was in meditation. I remember when this was in 1978, in a very famous course in California, in a place called Yucca Valley. Lama walked into the room, and he came in through the back of the room. There were 200 people in this very large room, and Lama came in from the back, and he was very small. I was so surprised. He was like this little tiny man who came walking in, and then he went around the altar, and he went up the stairs, and he sat on the throne. And then there was nothing but silence. And when Lama finished his meditation, in front of my eyes, Lama was the size of a giant. He was enormous, and he was golden, and he was radiating, and he did this thing which they say is a quality of the Buddha, is that each word that came out of Lama's mouth hit just everybody in the room at that point that they needed it. It was like a miracle had happened. So that was my beginning with Lama, and at that time, some people had given some land. At that time, at this course in California, in Yucca Valley, people gave land that became Vajrapani Institute. So the fellow that I was with, that I was living with, I'd been with for 8 years, we moved to this land in California and helped develop Vajrapani. But I only stayed 1 year because during that time frame in Vajrapani, I got pregnant. And for me, it was a very difficult situation being pregnant because I thought being a mother was just such an important job. And how can you teach anybody not to have hatred or ignorance or greed in their minds if you don't have that quality yourself? So it was a very painful situation for me to find myself pregnant and to know that I had so much work to do, that I wasn't qualified to be a mother. So I made this strong prayer that I really wasn't prepared to be a mother now, but if the time ever came when I should be a mother, I would do it, but I can't do it now. And I miraculously had it was October 12th. I remember 1977, 78, 77. Anyway, I had a miscarriage. So I went off to this course that Lama Geshe Sopa was holding in Madison, Wisconsin, called Deer Park. And it was at that point during Deer Park that I was asked to join the tour of the Lamas. And I began to travel around the world with the Lamas and with Lama Yeshe and with Lama Zopa and with the tour party. And then we went around across Europe. And then in Spain, I had only $100 left, only $100. And that was enough in those days to get me to Delhi, but I wouldn't be able to do anything else. I only had this $100. So I didn't know if I was going to stay in Spain or if I would go off to Delhi and just see what the world held for me. And I got a message from Lama Yeshe that said, you should come to Kopan and I'll take care of you. So the first time I went to Delhi, I went with Lama Yeshe. And it was just such an amazing experience. We stayed in Lama's sister's hotel. And I remember going out into Delhi. Lama sent me out to just walk the streets of Delhi. And so much became apparent to me in Delhi. Seeing horses, you hear about karma, and you hear that the karma of being a horse is unpaid debts. But when you see a horse in America, they're so nicely kept. They're in stables and they're groomed and they're taken care of like special treasures. But there in India, I saw the horse that was a beast of burden pulling a cart with somebody whipping it, and it was just a mass of bones. So karma was able to come live to me. And then I went. There was a lady she was in a basket, and she had no arms and no legs, and she was in a basket and begging, and she was happier, looked happier than I felt. So when I went back to the hotel, Lama asked me about my experience in Delhi, and it was just profound, so profound. So somewhere along the line, so I'll just give you one more quick story. So I went to Kopan as Lama instructed, and I had no intentions of anything but supporting this amazing growth of centers and the way the Lamas were able to help so many people. And one day I got this message so I was asked to take Lama Yeshe to the airport one day. And I was terrified because I didn't want to be next to Lama. I wanted to be supporting Lama. I didn't feel qualified to be next to Lama, but I was asked to take Lama Yeshe to the airport. So I took Lama to the airport, and he said that he wanted tea. now I'm really terrified because Americans don't drink tea like the English people do. So I had to make black tea and put just the right amount of milk into it and make it just right. I was terrified, and I offered my tea to Lama, and I said, Lama, if this is not satisfactory, then we'll start all over again. And Lama said, I like your style. So when Lama got to Delhi, Lama sent me a letter and said that I would be his next secretary. So I don't know if Lama liked my style or if it was a really good cup of tea. But from that moment on, Lama kept me close to him. And I'm so grateful, so grateful. And a little bit like you, Joya, that I didn't necessarily take the teachings because I was so busy running around. But watching Lama, being with Lama, seeing Lama interact. My job was really very much the gatekeeper, like Renuka was saying, was that keeping, because there were so many people that wanted to see Lama and Lama's health wasn't good. So that was kind of my job, being the gatekeeper. But if Lama wanted to see somebody, there was no gate. It'd be like what happened with Renuka, or the way that Lama touched you, Joya, where there were no boundaries. If Lama really wanted to reach out to someone like that. So we're so blessed, the three of us, these three lucky ladies, so extremely blessed to have had Lama Yeshe in our life. And I'm very grateful that Tushita Mahayana Meditation Center in Delhi continues and flourishes. So thank you so much, Renuka, for keeping that going.
Thank you.
I don't know if we have time. I would love to ask Jackie. a
Please take the
question.
mic and ask. Yes, yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jackie, I
Yes.
heard you speak in one of these huge things. I don't know who arranged. You were speaking from the States. Yeah, I wonder, wouldn't it have been nice if people like Mummy Max were there to speak about the early days of
Yes,
how
of course.
Lama set up that place? And Zena, who
Yeah.
actually bought that hill, I think, for him,
Yeah.
the hill in Kapan. It belonged to the royal astrologer of the king of Nepal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they bought that hill and how they developed it. So a little thing I wanted to say is when Lama passed, and then, as I said, I heard one of his last teachings in which I accidentally took refuge. But when his ashes came back, there was a lot of problem in the hospital because they wouldn't move him. Because I don't know, you must have heard of this, that when they put the hand on the heart, they felt something, the warmth or something. They said, no, he can't leave the hospital. We can't move him. We can't touch him. And the hospital got quite a problem. I'm sure
Yeah.
Karuna could talk about this. If we can, maybe we should record some things now. What do you think? Are they recorded, perhaps?
Well,
Reminiscences.
Big Love is a good testimony, isn't it, Renuka?
All
Aren't there
right.
stories in Big Love?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you if you had heard about the relationship of teacher and disciple that Lama Yeshe had, or was it that with Lama Zopa? Because, whenever, as long as Lama was there, Rinpoche would just behave like a servant, to anybody who came to see. He would put a cushion behind us, he'd put a cushion under our feet, he'd get us things, and he'd always look down while Lama was speaking.
Yeah.
What was the connection between them? He was the
Yeah.
teacher from Buxar, right? He was Lama Zopa's teacher from Buxar when they first came to India. You remember that?
No, Lama Zopa wasn't Lama Yeshe's teacher. Lama Yeshe was
No,
Lama
I mean
Zopa's
Lama
teacher.
Yeshe was. They were
Yes,
living
yes,
together
yes,
already
yes.
in Buxar. That's where he met him.
Yeah, they were.
In
So
the
Geshe
Assam
Rabten,
place.
Yeshe Robton was a teacher for both Lama Yeshe and Lama
Oh,
Zopa. And
oh,
it
I
was
see.
Yeshe, and Lama Zopa was just a child, basically. He was just a young reincarnate
Yes,
Lama.
yes.
And
Mhm.
so Geshe Robton is the one who made the connection between Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, like that. And then Lama Yeshe became his mother, became the mother and the father, the mentor, the guru, the everything to Lama Zopa. Lama Zopa didn't even get to choose what teachings Lama Zopa wanted to take. Lama Zopa had the opportunity once a year to choose whatever teaching Lama Zopa wanted to have. And every year, Lama Zopa chose Lamrim. That shows us how important the Lamrim is, that Lama Zopa could take any teaching anywhere in the world from any teacher, and Lama Zopa would choose Lamrim. That's a very good, a really important lesson for all of us, how important the Lamrim is. Yeah. So did that answer your question? So Rinpoche modeled the perfect guru. I'm sorry, the perfect student. Lama Zopa modeled for
Oh,
us
yes,
the
that's it.
perfect student. And then after Lama had left us, I remember being in a teaching once with Lama Zopa, where Lama Zopa said, "I never asked to have this title guru. I don't know how this happened, but here we are." And Rinpoche became this beautiful, perfect guru. You know, it's like he being the perfect student of Lama Yeshe. Lama Zopa took the responsibility of becoming the perfect guru in the absence of Lama Yeshe. Yeah, Lama Zopa is totally perfect.
Thank you so much. Mm.
Jackie, I just wanted to mention that our mutual friend Marsha is very sick now. So maybe you should look her up and do some prayers for her.
How do I think I can find her? I'll put her on my
She's
prayer
there.
list.
Yeah, she's there. You have her number, don't you?
I've lost track of them. I'll get in
They are
touch. She's
very.
very sick. Yeah, I'll get in touch.
She's.
I'll get in touch.
Yeah. Please,
Thank
that'll
you.
be very nice.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
I moved out of the town that I was living in. I had a house fire, and so I lost my house, and I had to switch towns, and I sort of lost contact with a lot. But I'll find out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just one more thing, Jackie, you may have met Zina.
No, I never
Who?
met Zina.
Oh,
No,
you
I did.
didn't.
Yeah, I came after she was gone.
Okay. So maybe I don't know who. Maybe Naresh had met her. Naresh is no more. No?
No, Naresh.
Oh, it's in the book. Okay. That would be a very interesting thing to say. She also, anybody who stayed long enough in touch with Lama Yeshe would become a student,
Yes.
a well-deserved student,
Well,
how
a lot.
she passed away doing the Tonglen.
You know, um, I would say that everybody was Lama's friend. Whether they considered them a student of Lama or not, Lama made everybody Lama's friend. That was the special quality that Lama had, that there were no boundaries between Lama and anybody else. And he had this incredible capacity with Lama's incredible warmth, to bring everybody into Lama's heart.
And when we used to go up to Kapan, on our work, we saw many mendicants, Hindu sadhus, mendicants, who would come up there.
Yeah.
They knew the place was special.
Yeah.
It was no longer, it was, already a Buddhist monastery. And but as long as Lama was there were many people coming up.
Yeah.
And they would just sit under that big tree that they had, which is unfortunately gone now, the beautiful big tree. When you
Is
come
it?
huffing and puffing up that 500 feet hill, then you sit under the tree. And they would come and
Wow.
stay there, they'd get a little tea or something like that. I don't know if Lama met them, but they knew the place had something very powerful in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed, it did.
And then Lama actually started the Himalayan Yogic Center in Karuna and Pam's house in Kathmandu because people couldn't come up the hill, you see. And he wanted to attract Nepalis because Nepalis weren't coming up. And so young Nepalis started coming there. I remember listening to a teaching of Lamas there in the Himalayan Yogic Center, where he just singled out a Nepali man in the audience. And he looked at him and he said, you know, we get so irritated. You know, your wife doesn't bring you tea in the morning and you get unhappy. And then your son doesn't listen to you and you get worried. And he just singled out this man. And this man's face completely changed. And he started laughing at himself. Yes, that's what happens to me. So it was
Oh, that's so
wonderful.
beautiful.
Beautiful, yes. He kind of really zeroed into somebody who was having some problems in his life which he couldn't talk about. It was beautiful.
Well,
Thank
that's
you so
one thing
much.
I'd like to just say one thing about Lama and Tushita, Mahayana Meditation Center in Delhi. Lama had, until the Himalayan Yogic Institute was established, TMMC was the only center in the FPMT that Lama started. All of the others were started by students who wanted to take a little bit of Dharma back to their own home country. But Lama started the center in Delhi because Lama said that we owe everything to the Indians. And if it wasn't for the Indians, there'd be no Dharma. So starting the Dharma Center in Delhi was Lama Yeshe's way of repaying the Indians. It's a very important message. And so everybody who is Indian and who does study with the center should really feel a divine sense of pride for your heritage and the important place that you've placed in history and continue to have in history.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and thank you so much, the three of you, for sharing stories. And thank you, Kabirji, also for the recorded story. And Jackie, what you said about Lama wanting to meet people reminded me of a story from Venerable Roger. I think in the early 80s, Lama's heart condition was already very advanced. And at that time, Venerable Roger was traveling with Rinpoche, I think from Delhi to Dharamshala, to Tushita Center there in the mountains, a long road that is very tricky. And Lama was showing the aspect of being very sick in the car and so forth. So when they reached there, Lama went to his room, and then some people in town heard the news that Lama was visiting, so they came all the way from Lower Dharamshala to Tushita to meet Lama. And Venerable Roger sent them back saying, Lama needs to rest. This is a story I wanted to share with you. And so the people were sent back to Dharamshala. And then Lama came out of his room and went to Venerable Roger and said, did some people come and wanted to meet me? And Venerable Roger said, yes, indeed, but I sent them back because I thought Lama needs to rest. And Lama said, the reason I am here is to help others. Please go after them, find them, and make them meet me. You know? Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Can I just tell you one other story that you made me think of? And that's we were in Italy one time, and Lama used to have Lama's health examined. It used to be like every 6 months to see the state of Lama's heart. And we were in Italy. Lama went to see a doctor, and I waited outside in the waiting room. And when they finished the exam, the doctor came out to me, and he said, "This is what the doctor said to me, looking me straight in the eye." The doctor said, "This man has a very big heart." Which, of course, Lama had a very big heart, but the doctor was talking about the fact that Lama had an enlarged heart. And what had happened was that it had actually petrified parts of his body, Lama's body. It had completely moved the organs out of the way because the heart was so enlarged, and it had begun to petrify parts of Lama's body. So the fact that Lama stayed alive, the miracle of the artery that Joya was talking about, there's so many miracles. Lama said that it was Lama's students who kept Lama alive. And he had a very big heart indeed.
And I think I would like to add, Lama gave up his life for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, which
Yes.
I think we have to be grateful to him
Yes.
for this fact. And we are very, very fortunate that His Holiness is still with us.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So, yeah, it's already quite late because we shared so many stories. Thank you so much for all these beautiful stories. So, we wanted to show teaching from Lama Yeshe, but maybe it's a little bit too long because it's almost 8. So, I have selected one compilation of like.
Can stay.
Yes, of course. Those who can stay, please stay. It's a small compilation of profound statements and funny moments from Lama Yeshe. That's just 15 minutes long.
You
So
made it.
maybe you can watch that. No, this is from
yes,
Lama
you
Yeshe Wisdom
have.
Archive. Yeah, just playing it from online. Yeah. So just allow me a moment to launch it on the screen.
Okay.
So, not easy. No, the sense when I say not easy, the nature of mind to think, the relative nature and the absolute nature. So, do we know relative nature? We know relative nature of our own mind. Then there is easy to direct our mind attitude. Yeah. So that is the individual responsible to check out. Not that I not talk about it, philosophical point of view, not that way. Karma is also unconsciously functioning. And unconsciously one do something, then lead big thing. For example, now Middle East problem also, beginning is sort of small. You understand? Small thing produce, that is karma. That is karma. Okay, now, good example is there. Small Middle East, little bit, action, becomes huge. That is karma. Matter of fact. You know the renunciation of samsara. Samsara. I think you know already. Renunciation of samsara, Renounce, what is renounce? Samsara. So called renunciation of samsara. I'm sure you're scared now. That also, the renunciation of samsara is attitude. Attitude. Right attitude. Mm. 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 What I'm saying is wrong attitude is the opposite of renunciation. Okay. Then you people think, oh, that's too difficult. Not difficult. You do have renunciation. How many times rejecting? How many times you rejecting certain situation? Hmm? Rejecting unpleasant situation. That you renounce. Well, you know, birds and dog has renunciation. You know? Hmm? And children has renunciation. If you beat them situation, they know how to go around. You understand? That is their way renounce. But that is not renunciation of samsara. Yeah. Huh? Or you broke your heart because your friend, because trouble with your friend. Yeah. Hmm? Hmm? Then you change something like that. Then you change your position. Anyway, friend give up already, so you have to do. So you change also like this. Then you renounce. But not renunciation of samsara. Mm. You renounce something, but that's not renunciation of samsara. Mm. So what is now? What is renunciation of samsara? Be careful now. Perhaps some people think, now I don't concern the pleasure. I don't concern pleasure. I like to have pain rather pleasure. Now I renounce. That also, not renunciation of samsara. Mm. Grasping. Still samsara trip. Still samsara trip. Particularly, perhaps we are now, you people practice meditation and philosophy and Buddhism, these things, If somebody tell you that your trip is a garbage, no one understands our country. If somebody put you nail by that, So reaction, you become restless, angry. That means that your trip of Buddhism or meditation or whatever it is, is also samsara. Is it nothing to do than a session of samsara? Problem, isn't it? It's a problem. You practicing, meditation, Buddhism, you think Buddha is special? Somebody said Buddha is not special. You're shocked. That means you are not free. You're holding. You're not putting your mind into right atmosphere. You still somewhere wrong here. You understand? So it's so renunciation of samsara is it's not easy. Of course, now you people are the only word. Oh, we all should be healthy mind. Eliminate, the obsessive, ego, which is any object. We are so concrete. Perhaps you when you are some sort of way so concrete, when you come, Buddha, Buddhism or meditation, and that also becomes so concrete by, clean, clear mind. Like when you see long distance, maybe there is tree, there's one tree. You say, oh, there's one human being, isn't it? You hold the, wood, with the superstition mind as human being. So in order to eliminate this wrong conception, ego, you have to see that bunch of energy is, as wood. That can clear, then disappear the conception of the holding, as human being, isn't it? Same thing. So the clear is the solution to eliminate concrete conception, wrong conception. Because having concrete conception, we are not flexible. Somebody said, oh, we do this way. You don't want to change. Only you are the right. Other people is wrong, isn't it? That, easy going, maybe. You see, you should not think that, the Buddhist, the philosophy, that renunciation is, important, or to one liberate, or order to reach liberation. This idea is renounce. Renounce, we should understand correctly. Another way I say it, practice Buddhism is not like soup. Not like Babaji's soup. But good test though. Test, okay. Where? Where approach Buddha, Buddhist Dharma, approach Kodan. art is organic, gradual to fulfill. Gradual fulfill. America's practice Dharma is without comprehension of karmic action of body, speech, mind. America's renunciation is grasping top pleasure, higher pleasure. Not sure. America's Bodhisattva is without renunciation of samsara. Possible? Maybe you can't take now anymore. Well, be careful, isn't it? Be careful. I say there is no Bodhisattva without the realization of renunciation. Excuse me for my aggression. Oh, well, all is becoming full of aggression. So I am. Yeah. Of course, we are very fortunate, actually, just try, I think, just try, it's very, fortunate. Very narrow mind, narrow mind. No one should know. Pleasure is, transitory, impermanent, coming, going, coming, going. Like California friend, going, coming, going. That way, when you have, renunciation, somehow, fanatic, sensitive expectation, sort of lose, sort of, it's like this, having like this. When you have renunciation, it's lose. Frustration basically built up with the, superstition, you understand? Samsaric, attitude, which is the opposite of renunciation of samsara.
Wow, those 15 minutes flew quickly, didn't they?
Thank you very much. It was like the first lesson, right? Renunciation.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Lama's laughter and his happiness, the way he exudes, the expressions. I mean, so natural, beautiful. Thank you.
Jackie, we opened the session with the Buddha Shakyamuni mantra. I think this was the way Lama was usually opening sessions. And do you know how Lama was closing sessions, how he was concluding sessions? Then perhaps we can do the same tonight.
Oh gosh, I can't think of a way Lama concluded a session. I'm sorry. But you're right about the Tayatao Muni Muni Maha Muni Ye Soha. I mean, the moment you hear that mantra, it's like puts you in the right space immediately. And I'm not sure how you're doing it in Delhi, but I know in the West we've kind of gotten away from that, and starting everything with that mantra is just such the very best way to get into the right space to be able to meditate or take the teachings or whatever. We're really lucky. And I really appreciated so much that you played that at the beginning of the session. Thank you. That was really lovely. And I'm sorry I can't tell you how Lama ended. I can't think of anything. Sorry.
No problem. Maybe we can just conclude by thanking everybody for joining tonight at Tushita and online. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your stories, Kabir ji and Joya ji and Renuka ji and Jackie. Thank you so much. And yeah, then perhaps we can simply dedicate so that the precious minds of bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness that have not a reason in us may develop very quickly, and that so that whatever has already a reason never diminish but increase forevermore.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
also perhaps for His Holiness the Dalai Lama to live very long and healthy, to continue to guide us and teach us, and for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to come back quickly in a fresh body, to continue to guide us, to teach us, and to lead the organization as well. And perhaps for all the wars that are happening around the world to immediately come to an end. May there be no new war. And may there be no famine, may there be no epidemic, may there be no financial crisis, may there be no disasters of the elements, natural catastrophes, and may peace and happiness prevail in everybody's hearts and lives. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone in Delhi, and have a good day from on the other side of the planet. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.